Hi, I'm Colleen from Mom Teaches Tech, and I can see that you're here, ready to learn today. And as a teacher, I love seeing people who are ready to learn. So let's get started. In this lesson, we're focusing on one very specific thing: how directly connected networks are created on a router. We are not configuring routing protocols. We are not setting up remote access. We are not worrying about anything else, passwords or anything. We are simply connecting a network to a router. This is the foundation that everything else in routing depends on. What does directly connected network really mean? Well, a directly connected network exists only when two things are true. An interface has an IP address, and that interface is up. When those two things happen, the router automatically knows about the network and adds it to the routing table. No routing protocol is involved. A directly connected network is created by interface configuration, not by routing commands. Specifically, the IP address and subnet mask that you configure on the interface define the directly connected network. On this router, we have configured the Gigabit Ethernet 03 interface as 192.168.0.1 with a /24. This IP address is in the network 192.168.0.0 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. The router knows this based on the interface configuration with the IP address and subnet mask. If we had configured this interface as a 192.168.0.1 with a /16, the router would recognize this route as the network 192.168.0.0 with a subnet mask of 255.255.0.0. This would be in a different network than our previously configured network. The key point is this: the network the router learns about is entirely configured on the interface with the IP address and subnet mask. If you configure the interface with an incorrect IP address or subnet mask, the router will incorrectly calculate the network that interface belongs to. And this is a common problem that people have when they're first configuring interfaces. If this part with the subnetting feels unclear, talking about the / notation or what network the IP address is in, it's a good sign that a quick review of IPv4 subnetting concepts would be helpful before moving on. So now we're going to get into configuration. When you first access a router, you're placed in user exec mode. To configure an interface, we must be in interface mode. So you can always identify the mode you're in by looking at the command line prompt. So just to review, user exec mode is indicated by a greater than sign. Privileged exec mode is indicated by a £. Global configuration mode is shown by the word config in parentheses with the £. And interface configuration mode is shown by config-if with the £, in parentheses, which tells us we're specifically configuring an interface. We're going to walk through this step by step and pay attention to which mode we're in, because that matters. You cannot go directly from user exec to interface mode. You must move through the modes in order. So for step 1, move from user exec mode to privileged exec mode. You do this with the command enable. Now you must move from privileged exec mode into global config mode with the configure terminal command. Finally, You can move into interface config mode by specifying the exact interface that you want to configure. In our instance, this is interface gigabit Ethernet 0/3. Now that you are in interface mode, you can complete the 2 steps that are needed to get this directly connected route to appear in the routing table. But here we have entered the IP address of the interface first with the subnet mask indicating the network. And then finally, for the next step, we bring the interface up with the no shutdown command. So really at this point, you may have already been configuring devices in the global config mode. So this is just 3 additional commands to learn. Once the interface has an IP address and is up, the router automatically recognizes the network as directly connected, adds it to the routing table. No routing protocol is required. You use the show IP route command to view your routing table. The directly connected route exists because of the interface configuration, not because of a routing command. One key thing to remember is that if you skip the no shutdown step, the route will not appear, even though the address is configured. The C entry represents the directly connected network, and the L entry represents the actual IP address that is configured on the interface. Nothing else is required. No static routing, no routing protocol. This is where all routing starts, with a directly connected network. I hope this made sense for you, and if it did, well then, we're winning. Check back for new videos weekly. It's probably not going to happen. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.